Fuck. All right, we're rolling.
Planet B
Presents
Cult and Culture Podcast.
Welcome to episode 50 of the Cult and Culture Podcast. We made it.
Yeah, big 5-0.
This episode features Sam McPheeters of Men's Recovery Project. Born Against. Wrangler Brutes. Vermiform, and just a fucking rad dude, great writer, prankster, everything. So, yeah, he came down and did this podcast with us. It's insane. I didn't know he did podcasts. We got him.
He normally doesn't.
Yeah. So, here we are. Thank you for celebrating our 50th podcast. If you haven't seen 1 through 49, we suggest you go back and watch and listen to all of those. So let's do this. Here we go. We'll see you on the other side.
I'm Luke Kinshaw, by the way.
I didn't say my name.
Say your name.
I'm Justin Pearson. Captain.
I'm Sam. You might know me from the record label. I crashed into an oak tree 20 years ago. I was in some bands. Give me a little bit of guidance here. What am I going for? What's the tone I'm going for with this?
Well, I mean, obviously your bands are legendary, and the things that people they are legendary to some.
I was in one band, Born Against, that is legendary among a very small select group of people, and at best right now occupies this space of being like a band's band, like the band that if you know that things are cool, then you know this band. Totally fine with that. Doesn't need to be any more than that. It's a little bit like after I started writing and publishing books, I have a science fiction novel that came out in 2016. Nobody knows about it. Didn't get much press. Came out 2 weeks before the election. And so it just like that absolved me of doing a book tour. And like now that is sort of just like, oh, I heard he wrote a science fiction novel. Like it has more value to me as just this weird thing in the past. And Born Against is totally like that. But even now I'm in my mid-50s and I get work all the time from Born Against. And it's insane the doors that has opened for me.
What do you mean by work?
Freelance work.
Like art or writing?
Mostly writing. Well, there has been art. I try to not... I definitely feel like I'm a failed graphic designer in some respects. Like, I don't know how to use the programs I have. I'm not gonna keep learning Photoshop 'cause it's gross, you know.
But that is like that has like soul in it. Like I mean, I always say that you created the Locust Plague Soundscapes artwork, and that's probably one of my favorite pieces. But you know,
I felt like that piece could have been a lot better. Like there's some core stuff in there, and it worked really well. Isolating those two little monsters, which I've seen a lot of tattoos of those.
I mean, yeah.
Well,
okay, so one of them's Skeletor, right?
No, not Skeletor.
The butt guy.
The butt guy. No, that was just a bunch. It was all just stuff from different little coloring books. I have like a stack of coloring books I use as source material.
I didn't mean to derail that, but I want to say is like I think the people's lack of knowledge of modern technology with design or whatever, it can be very beneficial because you create things that normal people, I guess, wouldn't if they had all the tools.
Sure. Yeah.
Kind of like the rub-off letter thing that everybody did in the 90s. That was like a big deal.
Yeah.
It's a definitive style.
Yeah. I mean, I just ripped that off of other bands. I mean, that started in the early 80s. I just kind of went a little bit farther with that than other people did. And then there was that label in Florida that did way crazier rub-off letters. Like, it took me a whole summer to do that 20-page booklet in the Born Against CD where it's all rub-on letters. Like, it was like monk-like work. And then these kids did this record where it's just like a poster and just outdid me on that front. What was the initial thread here?
I don't know.
Right.
We were talking about you skipped over another couple bands.
Yeah.
of
So,
yours.
well, no jobs that I've gotten. I've gotten a lot of freelance work as a writer. There's this whole little layer of editors out there who know a Born Against.
I mean, you did the Vice people, but also like the Cream people. Can we give a shout out to them because they're pretty rad.
Writing for Cream right now, finishing up a piece for them,
and that's a great publication. So that's rad.
Yeah, it's really, the backstory behind that.
I mean, it goes way back.
Well, I mean, besides the magazine, this is what I heard, that the publisher is the son of the original publisher. I'm probably getting the story wrong, but what I heard is he was 6 years old when his dad passed away, I think from an overdose, inherited the magazine, spent his entire adult life trying to get it to work. And like, after 30 years, he actually got it, So there's this huge success story thing on it. Yeah, Cream's been, that's a good example. They've been like...
Print only right now, which is wild.
Well, they have a few things online, right?
But you can't get the issue digital. Like, that's so rad. You have to get the physical thing.
They're really, really going for it. And they, so far, have sent me to Ohio. Vice sent me to the Middle East and Africa. So I'm kind of hoping Cream, maybe we can, Ohio was great, though. Thank you. But they've been incredibly, not just being nice to work with, but really nice to me personally. One of the things I told them when I started was, hey, I have all these other chapters that I wanted to be in my book, Mutations, the last book I did of music writing, and I just didn't get around to them. They're like, just do those pieces, And,
so like whole other because Mutations to me read like an album sort of, or like a compilation, like each kind of story was separate.
Yeah, it's a little compilation.
So was there just like other stories?
Yeah, well, I wanted to do a chapter on Kill Rock Stars, and that just didn't happen. At a certain point, that book writing it was so unhealthy for me. I mean, it was me unearthing a lot of painful shit, and I hadn't intended to do that. Originally, it was just a collection of my writing about music with no new material, and then slowly this other thesis sort of emerged, and I had assumed I was done with music writing.
Sorry, can I ask what was painful? The part we're talking about Vermiform, maybe, or was it?
Actually, there's not much about Vermiform. I don't know, just the stuff Born Against went through.
Yeah.
The debate was sick of it all, and
and
I was pretty liberal with describing mistakes that I've made as a younger person. And a lot of people responded positively, and a few people responded really, really negatively to that. Like, that was their complaint.
That you trashed yourself?
Rich trust fund punk. Whines about mistakes or something, but then all the bad reviews they'll always throw in like, don't get me wrong, the guy can write. Well, this wasn't what I wanted. Okay, I guess that's a good bad review. So yeah, Cream's letting me do all these other pieces that I just didn't have time or the brain power to finish. Yeah, it's a little hard to describe. And also it's hard for me to remember how bad things get in projects that aren't going well. And that definitely was one where I was just like, I'm going to die if I keep writing this book. That sounds really dramatic now. That's how it felt at the time. So it's been very nice of them to do that and to pretty much let me do whatever the hell I want, which is really, really rare. Like, I read a fair amount of books and articles on writing. I aspire to be a better writer. And always you read the things like, don't expect to get sent to another country or to be able to do whatever you want. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like, I've been doing those things, but I'll tamper my expectations.
Well, I think the book was interesting to me. Again, like, I don't know, the negative, I didn't come across any negative reviews, but I feel like you know,
Most reviews were really positive. I got a lot of good press for that.
all of it seemed rad. But even when they're negative, that's really good because it's better than them not talking about it, right?
Yeah, I was very curious as to like, all right, where would someone come at from a negative angle? And it turns out the main thing was people not reading. So I hadn't really figured out until I've been involved in publishing books now, like how subjective it is. And so there's always going to be people who just straight up aren't ready to, they're not into whatever it is you're doing, and you're not going to change their mind, and they're just like, there's nothing I could have done that would have prevented these bad reviews. And then there was another class of it where there's intentional misreadings, and there's one line in the book about hardcore. One of the appeals of hardcore is its accessibility, comma, meaning you can meet anyone. The people are accessible. And multiple readers took that to mean that I was saying that hardcore as a genre of music was accessible. And they really took offense at this, even though if they'd read the full sentence, they would see that wasn't what I was saying.
Which is kind of like what maybe not punk, but like hardcore was like based on. Like you can do it. You can. Yeah,
well, the accessibility of you can do it. You can meet whoever you want.
Yeah.
All the people that I wanted to meet, almost without exception, I got to meet. Yeah, it was strange to me that, and so I paid attention to that. Anytime there's any sort of feedback where people's things match up, I always pay attention to that because reading is so subjective. The first novel I did is someone gave me feedback like, well, you got a big error in your book. And I'm like, what is it? Tell me. Well, the physics of, and it was a tiny one little sentence about like a car turning on the freeway or something like that's been disproven by Mythbusters. So I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
When you're right, you're right.
Well, I mean, you have an editor, right, that you work with, or?
Yeah.
You hope they catch all of the
They hope
things.
they catch all the stuff. There wasn't much fact checking for mutations. I thought, and also I was a little worried about a few legal things, and it turned out I didn't need to. And also I pulled, a lot of the reviews of that book were about, Sam doesn't pull any punches or whatever. I'm like, dude, the whole book is pulled punches. Like
You mean like talking shit?
was talking shit about people. There are a few people who I needed to say some things about. There was a footnote about American hardcore, which is a really shitty, racist, sexist piece of crap and a badly written book. And
Was that Tang Records or something? Or is that?
I don't know. Stephen Blush wrote it.
Oh yeah. Sorry.
And actually, weirdly, he asked me to be on his podcast right after that came out, and
He wanted
I
to,
wasn't sure how to react. Like,
Yeah.
did you read footnote whatever 79 or like? I don't want to go on his podcast and just berate him for.
Or he just beats the shit out of you when you get there.
That would be fine. That would be fine, and a long time coming.
Yeah.
Is that the setup for today? All right, wait. Here's a question. All right. So, have we always been on good terms? Because I have a distinct memory.
I have a memory that I want to bring up too, so you go first.
Okay, I'm gonna go first.
Okay.
My memory is that I was, for a while, Vermiform was acting as a distro. And so I had anything that was related. My rule is just if it's like one member of a band, then it's okay for me to sell it, just to kind of keep some focus. And I was selling the Queen covers comp. What was that? Which was called
Dynamite with a Laser Beam.
Dynamite with a Laser Beam. Yeah. And so my description of it was members of, and then whatever, UOA, the Locust, blah blah blah, turn Freddie Mercury's grave into an open-air toilet in this shameless covers comp, or shameful covers comp. I remember writing it. I'm like, oh, that was funny.
Yeah.
And then weeks or years later, I was like, what? Why would I do that? I'm friends with them, and I'm selling this record. So it was a little bit of the fanzine deal from maybe when I was a teenager. Like, I have to tell the truth. I'm going to speak my truth about this record I got to review. Extended well into adulthood for a record I was trying to sell. So if that got back to you, sorry.
No, I have no problem whatsoever.
Okay,
And I
all
also, whatever the description was that you just gave was great. Also, it's loaded with all of the homies on it. It's got all of our friends are on it. So I don't think
Yeah, pretty much every single person. Yeah. So I guess in my mind I was like, it's some gentle ribbing, but
I had no problem. I think the first thing that I guess there's so many different levels of things that I think have come up over the years. For one, I feel like I'm a little bit younger than you, so I kind of got into punk and hardcore. I saw you guys play at a garage in San Diego here.
Rice.
No, Rice didn't play. It was before Rice, but it was at
Oh.
Corey Lindstrom's
That was
house.
the first show I ever played in California.
Yeah, with
yeah.
No Escape.
And
You're right.
Corey's band. Oh wait, which was
No, I don't think Corey played, but I was like into cool shit, but also into like dumb shit. Like I don't know, like No Effects was fine or whatever. I didn't know yet, and so it was like kind of like going to that show and like seeing those certain things and like getting the first Born Again single, I guess, which was the 2-song 7-inch maybe. Anyhow, I just remember and the regular 7-inch, but all like getting into like cool shit helped sort of put me on a trajectory without really knowing, and then seeing the band kind of I use this in a loving way, derail itself with like the like humor aspect that I think a lot of punk and hardcore didn't have. It wasn't acceptable, and I was like, oh man, Born Against is like actually hilarious, highbrow, like kind of taking shots at people, and I liked that a lot. And then it was
very generous description.
Oh my god! And then going into the realm of Men's Recovery Project, I was like, oh, those guys are full-blown lunatics. I love that shit. And it really was helpful for what the Locust became, I think, because at the time I think we were dealing with a lot of issues, and we still are dealing with them, but like in punk and hardcore. So thank you for that.
Okay.
However that happened. But I mean, over the years, my only real gripe I think ever was with John Hiltz. He dragged me out of a festival that the Locust was headlining and threw me out. And I was like, I gotta still play the show, dude. You just
Really?
threw me out. So that was kind of weird. I did get to play, but
John is ultimately a very nice person. We had some personality clashes that led to him not being in the band. And the main reason that he was kicked out of Born Against was that he had joined another band, Grey House, and didn't tell us. And then, had like scheduling conflicts. And that was very clear, like, oh, that's a fireable offense. That's not cool. But there were already personality problems with all of us. But you're talking about a post-Born Against event.
very
anyway.
post, yeah.
Yeah.
He was trying to like fight someone in Airborne Radar, and I was
Really?
like, I was like kind of like sticking up for them, and then he threw
Wow.
me out, and I was like, all right.
Okay.
But
I sincerely wish John all the best in his future
Yes.
endeavors.
I mean, you guys got Brooks, which is like
And then
one
we
of the
got Brooks.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the drummers of drummers, where you're just like, oh, you just reached the top. Where you can
Yeah.
go from there. So that was cool. But yeah, I think like there was so much, or even when the Locust got to tour with Wrangler Brutes, it was very
Yeah. So what was your take on that tour?
We were asked to do the tour with Dillinger Escape Plan,
Right.
And so we were like, okay, we're into that. Let's do that. And they said each band gets to pick an opening act. And so our kind of goal was to pick band. We had Wrangler Brutes do part of it and Orthrome do part of it.
Right.
And
There was a third.
and the Das Oath. We wanted
yeah.
to grab like bands that were not. So and also at the time I didn't know this, but we wanted to grab bands that were like not too macho and kind of like steer away, because that was kind of like Dillinger Escape Plan's vibe, and I think
Yeah.
they wanted us to do the tour for that same reason. But anyhow, it was really interesting to see you all every night and to kind of see the performance aspect was eye-opening for me at least.
Yeah, that was not a good tour for us, and we fell apart. Like I think on the last show.
I think you didn't even play the last
I
one.
didn't play the last show. And then we pulled it together to tour Japan, but in the way of like a couple that's divorcing, but they
Yeah.
still have the tickets for the cruise. So why don't we go on the cruise? And oops.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was not a good tour for any of us.
I hope it wasn't our fault in any way.
No.
Okay.
The only thing that was weird, but I didn't get the impression this was your fault, was that we had been told that we were going to be alternating opening.
Yeah,
And then it turned out we weren't.
Yep.
So we opened every night. So we had this thing where like every evening friends of ours would show up at like
Later,
9 and
yeah,
we're like,
yeah.
dude, we played at 6:45.
not only do I know that, but we also were told that we were going to be alternating with Dillinger, and that didn't happen either. So it's,
Oh, no shit.
Yeah.
All right. Well, the other part of it is I didn't stay for any of the other shows. I'm sure you knew this. I split immediately. I was not in a good place. And our guitarist, Andy, was working for Marriott. And
Yeah.
so we would get, for
Yeah.
$50 a night, we could get 5-star hotels at the Renaissance. And so,
I would be there too.
yeah, by the time the second band had started, I was like 30 stories above whatever city we're in a
Yeah.
hot tub, still just like, just sitting by myself slowly. And then I would being the designated driver at the time, I would drive back and pick up all my bandmates at the end of the night, and so it kind of worked out for. I mean, that's not true. I did see a bunch of the shows. It wasn't every show I skipped out on, right?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you guys doing it because if it, on a selfish level, obviously I love the band and I love everybody in the band. So it was really nice to have you guys be part of it. But it was also very nice for us to have I felt like I don't want to say team, but our comrades are here on stage with us. We can kind of relate,
especially in those environments, because it was all kind of like alien territory. It was
it's every night you're and also it was jarring to go out on stage and people call you fag again. You're like, really, what? This is happening right now again?
Oh wow, okay, I missed that part of it.
There was a bit of the macho kind of shit that
that was the first time I really was people. See, now I just talked about all this with Bob, and me and my wife just had lunch with Bob from Final Communications before coming here, and we were talking about that. And so I'm not sure if I'm repeating myself, but that was the first time that I would show up at a show and there's a kid in a My Chemical Romance shirt, and I'm like, oh, things have changed, are going to change so quickly soon that I'm not going to be able to keep up with this. This is not the crowd that I started touring with in the early 90s. And that was really disorienting. Wasn't there a point on that tour? I remember there was, you guys had gotten the world's worst weed, and you gave it to us, and we're like, none of us smoke this. So we put it in a health food store, wrapped it up with the oregano and put it on the shelf.
Oh, you guys did that too? Yeah, we did that.
Or do you do that?
We did that, yeah. We put little price tags on it, and we clipped them where the chips were.
So right there, I've been taking credit for something that you all did.
Wheatsville,
no way that
Wheatsville Food Co-op in Austin, we did that. And I wanted to see the aftermath of that, before weed was ever even considered to be legal. So we just put the bag up with the chips, and it was $1.99.
Somebody had a really, really fun / horrific night because of that.
Or got in trouble, because Texas was pretty.
Oh, right, that too.
Yeah.
Where did you all stay when you were on that tour? Were you?
We didn't stay at. We stayed at 2-star hotels.
Okay, usually. But you weren't staying on people's floors.
I think we were able to do at least all of us cram into one hotel room kind of thing. I mean, we kind of had our shit together a little bit, I guess.
It makes me sad, though, that you could reach a point well into adulthood where you're all 4 of us in this beautiful hotel room, 2 people on the floor, and we switch off the beds. We've made it. And then we were in Japan. That last tour in Japan, we stayed one night with a friend who was on tour with the guy from the Stray Cats, whose name is...
Brian Setzer.
Yeah, his orchestra.
Yeah.
And they were doing their annual Christmas Japan tour. And... she had a really nice room all to herself in Tokyo. And we're like, oh, this is right. Okay, there are higher layers to this.
Well, we did a tour with at the drive-in, and they had a press room that was only for press in this hotel, and we got to sleep there. That was funny because we just we're on the phone all night calling people and in the States and stuff.
And then you'd have to clear out when press time comes?
Yeah, in the morning,
Oh, my God.
Yeah, it was bizarre. I'd never seen that level of anything. Which is... fine.
It's fine to see it, but none of that was very appealing to me. The venues we were playing, all of that I was out of my element, and also dealing with my own things. And
on that tour, we played a lot of House of Blues.
Yeah,
which was
3 or 4 times.
Really weird.
And a lot of people, I'd get grilled for that. Why are you playing House of Blues? What's your take?
It's not punk.
And it was good to push back on that a little bit. I mean, that felt a little satisfying. Our thing on that was we would always play all ages shows, but we had no price restriction, which seemed completely plausible. And we didn't get any pushback for the price thing. But twice, people showed up. Once someone showed up with a child.
It was always all ages, except in New York City, you can't have it be under 16 or something.
Yeah. I think we figured out along the way on that tour, why are we playing all ages shows? This doesn't seem good for anyone. No one showed up and said, thank you so much, as used to happen with Born Against. Yeah. And twice, people showed up with their kids, and the kids were bummed. The kids did not want to be there. And my whole thing is I'm facilitating you being a bad parent. That sucks. That's a bad feeling.
And that was why you stopped playing music?
I had some other... I aged out of playing music. There's no way to do what I did. I was getting weird headaches by the end of that tour, warning headaches, stop what you're doing, because the human body's not built to do that. I mean, how is your voice held up? Do you have things that you can and can't do anymore?
Well,
Some of it's got to just be genetics. Like if you watch John Brannon
yeah.
now,
Yeah.
he sounds even better.
But he's an interesting take too because he's very like I'm right here. Like I don't know. For me, it's like a workout. There's like a very theatrical, I guess, to some extent. So there's more movement where like they don't do that. I guess the crowd is the one doing the thing. But I think I don't know. I sleep enough. I eat well. I do.
Okay,
I
but
do-
you're not. You can still do the things that you need to do with the voice.
for the
with
most
your
part.
life.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, a month or so.
I don't know if I could. I'd say once every other year, I get mad at someone in traffic and scream really loud in my car. I'm like, oh, okay, still got it. But it's not like a power I can use. I had this thing. These kids. This is like 20 years ago. These kids across the street from my house were throwing rocks at cars. They were hiding in bushes in church parking lot. And I saw them, and my first reaction was like, oh, kids. I'm like, oh, shit, I'm an adult. Like, I have to take care of this. So I went inside, I did some vocal warm-ups, and then I came out, and I go, hey! And it was like birds scattering out the trees. Like I shocked myself at how loud I was. And like car alarms going off. And so the kids, it was really unsatisfying. They just kind of turned around and walked away. And I'm like, I need a follow-up. And the only thing that came to mind was why. It's like, why? I'm screaming. And then at a certain point, I'm like, wait a minute. It's midday. I'm a middle-aged man. I'm wearing a Hawaiian shirt on my lawn screaming why at traffic. None of these cars saw what transpired. They just think I've finally snapped. And that was the last time I think I treated it as any, like, there's no use for it, being able to yell loud, like it's not really a skill that translates to the real world. That was a sad moment.
I would have maybe approached the kids, and been like, hey, we gotta like, hone in on what we're throwing rocks at. Like maybe
throw 'em
just
at the church.
yeah, at the church or the cops or what, like kind
I was
of get
confused back then. Yeah.
Well, so there's a couple things that I would love to ask you about just for my own personal benefit, which is I think coming from the East Coast was always like a little jarring to some extent because you had your beef with like Sick of It All people or who are the different bands that you
We had beefs with a lot of bands.
yeah, but there was never, and I felt like in California or on the West Coast, there really wasn't like this sort of, I hate using terms that are been bastardized, but like there's punk rock and then there's like the hardcore kind of like
Sure.
dudes or whatever,
Yeah.
We didn't really have that. Like the most hardcore kind of band was like Infest, and they weren't like, beating people up or whatever, or trying to fight. So I was always kind of like, oh, weird, because there's the crank call on your guys' EP, the 10-inch,
yeah.
right? Where they're like, I don't know who that is. Someone
That's
from
not a real call. I had gotten calls like that. I didn't save them, and they're like, well, wait a couple days. I'll get a few more. And then I'm like, I don't want to give that person satisfaction.
to put them on your
So
record.
we had a friend do it. And then that kind of turned into like a dirty secret. And like, I've never tried to hide that, like.
But people would like fucking wanted to kill you, right? They like hated you guys.
Yeah, well, no, I guess they hated Adam too. Yeah. I don't think that was so much of an East Coast thing. That was us. Like, we just were plopped into this environment that was like target rich, and Adam already had this history of going out and like flyering shows and just being incredibly antagonistic. And I had been antagonistic in my fanzines, which I think is a little bit different from being antagonistic on the internet. Like, your name's attached to the fanzine. People know you're going to be at a show.
Yeah.
Like, there's opportunities for people to find you, and sometimes they would.
Do you have any stories that were like substantial?
Oh, me, I never got beaten up
Yeah. Wow.
ever.
Yeah.
And I tell people that, and they're like, I got beat up tons of times, and I wasn't in a band like Born Against.
Yeah.
How'd you do that? And
Yeah.
it was just luck. I have a lot of stories of like close calls or things I would hear about later. The worst I ever got was in Springfield, Missouri. We had to hide from some white power skinheads for, I want to say 2 days in someone's attic.
What?
While our van was being repaired. We showed up at the venue, and it was one of those really cool, like a Grange Hall, and it's like dusk, and it's it's Midwest, and it's just like a very strange environment. And you're like, this is why we're touring, and everybody's in a really good mood. And we go in, and there was only 2 people, like it was empty, and we see these 2 figures coming at us, and they slammed the door into Adam. That was absolutely the worst that ever happened. Adam had like a smash racism patch. And they're like, I'm racism, motherfucker. And wait, can I swear on your podcast?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. I don't know. I guess I should have asked that earlier.
Yeah, you could do that.
And so we had to book it back to the van, and everyone else in the van is like still popped up on being here. We're like, leave, you turn the car on right now. We're leaving. The show got moved to a house. We showed up at the house, and I think the same two dudes had showed up at the house and done sort of a home invasion, like said, this is our home now. We're living here.
Whoa.
So the show was shut down. Then we had van problems, but they were still looking for us, and it was a small town, and so we hid out. Like, that's not that crazy a story, you know. Just tons of close calls. Almost got arrested in Paris. Played to at least 50 really angry skinheads in Miami, who probably would have beaten us up, but we did such a bad show because I was sick.
Was it Born Against?
Yeah, it was Born Against. They had heard, by the time we got to Miami, they had heard that we burned flags on stage. And so the promoter was really nervous. He's like, if you do it, don't do it tonight. We're like, we don't do that, so don't worry.
I mean, I'm sure the artwork of the album was probably confusing to skinheads.
Yeah, we had a lot of fans that were skinheads, including like racist skinheads. Some of that was a New York thing. Like Life's Blood had a whole contingent of white supremacists that really liked them.
Really? Well, Adam is a skinhead, or was, right?
No, he was never. I mean, he had a shaved head, but no, I don't think he ever considered himself a skinhead. But
a good one.
yeah.
Okay.
No, we were. I mean, I shaved my head a lot too, and it was just us being wacky kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a lot of weird stuff with Life's Blood, and some of that spilled over for us. And also, that was sort of the beginning of the band. By the end of the band in '93, it was a very homogenous type of crowd, very male. Just young guys with backpacks. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Just a certain look, and it wasn't fun. The same way that playing a show in like '89 in a squat basement had been fun, because it was like violent, weird, scary people that were all one of a kind, and you didn't know what was going to happen. But if you played your cards right, you probably wouldn't get punched yourself. What was the original question here?
I'm not sure.
This is why I'm careful. I don't tell many like band stories. I try really hard to not do that unprompted. Both.
But I'm so far.
You're requesting them, and that's the point of this. Yeah. But I'm saying in my life, there's that thing with anyone who's been on tour a lot. I'm sure you've experienced this, where people will bring up anything. Kalamazoo, and you're like, I've been to Kalamazoo. I have a story about it. Or anywhere, pretty much any big city in the country, you have something to say about it. And then usually I'll reflect on it now, like, that's not appropriate, and it starts to seem a little weird if I keep interjecting myself. And so I just kind of like don't talk about tour stories kind of at all, because I don't know where the line is, you know, like it seems like it'd be kind of easy to become a bore. And I know some people who are good people, but they're a little like, if you say the word Japan around them, you can see like, I've been to Japan, and then they have to talk about it, you know, and that's fine. I just don't want to be that person myself. And there's a lot of temptation in that if you've done a lot of traveling with the band, as I have.
Well, like to me, I mean, I don't give a fuck what anyone thinks about this podcast. I want to talk to my friends.
That's the attitude, young man.
I want to talk to my friends and have a conversation about stuff that I think is interesting. And there's things that like I would love to talk to you about, like the Donahue crank call or shit like that. You know, like that's fucking cool.
There's a lot of things like that, including the Melt Banana split, where people will ask me like, "What's the inside story?" And I'm like, I did a record cover, or the Donnie thing. Like, there's nothing.
Donnie.
I prank called Donnie. There's nothing really more to it than that, you know.
But it was like at a great time, and you got use out of it.
Yeah,
because I was like, if
weird.
that would never have come out on that record, I don't know if anybody would have ever.
It happened, and then we went on tour immediately, and then we came back, and I was like, well, I'll just figure out how to get a recording of it. And everyone was like, how are you going to do that? And I went through the process, and it is possible, but it was really expensive. It's like $100 to get a cassette tape.
Yeah.
And it was all this. They don't make it easy. They don't want people to do it, but they still allow people to do it if you really, really have some perseverance, which I didn't always have back then. So I don't know why that one thing worked out.
Well, it turned out great.
Yeah, totally. Although I would think from someone who doesn't know the band or know anything about it that it would sound like it was not real. You know, it sounds a little chopped together. There's some weird audio stuff. It's been a long time since I've listened to that.
I think the only thing is maybe you guys sampled the laughing at the end and added to it.
Yes, and we added stuff to it. So it was just.
But it's Donahue, and he was like kind of like the cooler one of the bunch.
Yeah, I mean, he was really that New York hardcore one, which I'm sure you've seen. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that one's just.
He also had,
totally
I think
bonkers.
Martin from Los Crudos was on one about breakdancing.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
On Donahue?
I think it was Donahue.
Martin, we showed up at his house, in like 92 or 93, whenever Los Crudos started. And he looks at me and he's like, "You don't remember me and you writing, right?" And I was like, "Oh no." And he pulls out a fanzine from 1987 that I'd sent to him when he was doing mail order. And it's just like, "Yo, yo, yo, Martine, what's up?" Like, it's all just like bad me doing my whatever sort of like Beastie Boys fan shtick. And I just crumpled. And it was just like, in my memory, the scene gets like fish-eyed and it's everyone laughing at me, you know, and me like, "Oh, I'm sorry."
Was that your jam before you fully dove into punk? Was it like...
No, I went through phases.
Yeah.
My phases, unfortunately, were in college, not high school. I mean, we were all really into Beastie Boys and like mid-'80s rap, so that was part of the whole thing. And then that was not cool by the time Born Against started. But then the Beastie Boys got cool again at the end of Born Against. And that definitely rubbed, like you can see, we're all wearing the ski hats, which is like, that was the Beastie Boys look back then.
Yeah.
And I have a photo of me from 87, like, doing the ad rock pose with my hat when Brian Baker stayed at my friend Jason's house. Like, it's incriminating. It's not cool.
I not to put you on the spot, but I really would love to know like what like the Beastie Boys think of Born Against. I'm sure they are well aware of the band at this point.
I mean, no, they're not.
Oh, come on.
Well, I'm now, like, I know ad rock well enough to talk to him.
He doesn't know about Born Against?
No. I mean, stuff has come up. Like, I just want to be really clear. I wasn't like, "Hey, what do you think about Born Against?"
Yeah,
like,
of
I'm
course.
not.
Yeah,
It was very tactful, but me, like, I got a lot of questions, you know, and so let's just like, no, by the time any of that scene happened, they were gone. They were in Los Angeles. They weren't in any way interested or connected to punk. I think until Bikini Kill came around, and then they kind of re-engaged.
Which, shout out to Kathleen for reeling them in with some of their like sexist antics. I was like, oh, it's cool that
they really did a really interesting turnaround.
Yeah.
And as someone who, I can't say I was with them since the beginning, but since '87 when that record came out, like it was a cool thing to watch.
It really was.
And
they did it tastefully and
they just did it correctly.
Yeah,
and it wasn't arduous or anything. They just decided to be nice people, and I really took something out of that.
Yeah.
Like, that's a way to live one's life.
Do you think that maybe transpired into the Men's Recovery Project stuff?
Which, how?
Maybe, because, you know, to me, when I objectively look at maybe not necessarily just Born Against, but like stuff of that era, it was kind of just like very politically charged, like fuck you kind of stuff. And then after a while, I think maybe with you becoming more comfortable with humor and sort of like some of your, I don't want to use the word antics. I use this in a great way.
Antics is totally appropriate.
It just made it like it just heightened the like to me it heightened the intellect of the product or of the thing, the overall thing.
Okay.
Is this that
seems suspiciously generous.
Fuck. Well,
MRP, I think, there was a certain time when it became clear that Born Against was an insufficient vehicle for expressing contempt. Contempt? Yeah, definitely. Contempt would be the right word for it. And MRP was a way of being contemptuous towards everyone. You know, it was literally like...
Because you can do whatever the fuck you want.
Me and Neil were just like, we're fucking done with everyone.
Yeah.
Neil moved to Virginia with me. He was done with New York. He had a very separate life from our scene. He was in sort of a tougher, weirder, scarier scene in New York. And I think both of us just at the same time realized, like, there's no incentive to not do whatever we want and to offend everyone. And that's kind of where we're both at. And let's just do it, you know, and let's be in a band that makes clear to the audience that they're just a joke to us. And that'll be that. And obviously it evolved into different things. I also thought about this recently, that I only very recently figured out I was farther along on that continuum than Neil. There was a point on an early MRP record where I wanted to put in the liner notes, "Fuck you to our fans, friends, and families." And so before approaching Neil, I'm like, that's maybe not Neil's style. I'm going to water it down just a bit. So it said, "No thanks to our fans, friends, and families." And I told Neil, and he's like, I don't think so. I'm like, all right, that's where the line is. That's where I'm at, and that's where you're at, and that's fine. And I'm kind of glad that didn't happen.
Yeah.
What Tara was pointing out, my wife, is that if MRP had been completely contemptuous at the shows she saw, like maybe things would have turned out differently. Like we obviously something else was being expressed at that point. But I think that was the main start of it, was just I want to be in a band that really it really galled me when Born Against be playing and people would jump up on stage and try and sing along with the songs. I'm like, what the fuck? The song isn't about you. Go away. This isn't your thing. That didn't happen with MRP ever, and that was really nice. At no point did anyone jump up and make that whatever the gesture they would do. Yeah.
I mean, it's very hardcore centric to assume that you can go sing with the singer. I mean, I would never go see fucking Nick Cave or whatever and get up on stage and start singing some shit with them.
Neil used to do that. He would. There was a great prong show where he's on stage with them.
They're from New York, right?
Yeah, maybe I guess that part you should take out. Sorry, Neil. That was a fun show, though.
Okay, so I saw Men's Recovery Project in little chunks here and there. So I saw there's the one where you guys played at the Huntington Beach Library, and my friend Mariko unplugged.
Mariko got blamed for it. This is what we figured out years later. Mariko took the fall for that. Sorry, Mariko. It wasn't her. There's someone else.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, the laptop got unplugged, and that had her whole set on it, which was like straight out of a nightmare.
Also, on the forefront of people using backing tracks or sequenced stuff, right? I mean, no one really did it yet.
In that scene, sure, yeah.
Playing in a fucking library on the floor,
library,
yeah, that's dangerous.
Yeah. I mean, that was kind of the history of that band, is that anything that could go wrong would, not in a funny way, but in a really sad and humiliating way.
But that was one of my favorite sets I've ever seen.
That was a really good set. That was the show where I met Tara, and we know a lot of people in our shared lives who were at that one show. Yeah. That was a really crazy show.
I think it was with the VSS and Man is a Bastard.
Man is a Bastard and Jenny Piccolo.
Jenny Piccolo.
Yeah.
Which is just incredible. But you guys killed it, and I think it was really a huge shift for a lot of people, because I think John Skritza had the shoe on his face, and you guys had small sweaters, and I was like, yeah, they're so bizarre. And Neil obviously had the GIMP mask, and I was like, oh, this is the best. And I hate using terms, but punk band. It was aesthetically and ethically maybe punk, and it was cool how you guys transitioned. There's that video. I don't remember him saying it, but Neil was like, "Fuck it, we're playing a traditional set," and I was just like, "Whoa, dude!" And then you guys just shifted and played the other style.
Yeah, that's just luck that show happened to be good. There's plenty of shows. We went to Alaska and played in Homer. Which
that's
is
crazy
nowhere,
that you went there. Yeah.
And played to 6 people.
Mm-hmm. But you wrote a song about it, right?
We had a whole little record that we went to sell there. Yeah, that was a separate disaster. And at one point we were playing 2 different songs.
Yeah, I've done that before.
That kind of stuff. And afterwards I left. The end of the set was me just leaving, and I took a walk, and I sat down on this beach, and I don't know what the body of water is, but you're looking out over the Sound maybe in southern Alaska, and the mountains start beyond the horizon. So it looked like something out of a science fiction movie. And I was like, the fuck am I doing with my life? What is this? Why have I come here to embarrass myself in front of these people? So we had at least as many shows that went as badly as that. And even then, you can save a show like that, but me and Neil couldn't, because we were so bummed out at ourselves. And I think that was probably very grating on the other band members.
Of course.
That we somehow took it very seriously, even though the thing itself wasn't serious.
Well, then there was the show we played at Kundo's in L.A. together, the Locust and MRP.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And you guys had
And Thrones.
I think Joe might have been in the band at that point.
Oh, yeah.
But you had this whole shtick where you couldn't get the sound right, and then the PA started laughing at you.
I don't remember that at all.
Okay.
Like we had a pre-recorded thing.
Okay,
we did a few of those.
There was a long time when you guys were setting up, and you were very agitated, and everyone's waiting, and eventually there's this laughing, thing, and then it turns out that it was the PA was fucking with you guys, and you're cursing into this.
A bit.
It was fucking hilarious.
Okay,
and then,
but that just means you saw it at a time when that bit worked. I guarantee there was another show where nothing worked right, and everyone was like, "What?"
I mean, this was a well-attended show, and it was anticipated. Everyone was excited, and you guys. everyone was expecting like, I don't know what we were expecting, kind of more what is traditional
exactly.
MRP, but a real performance. And there was a bit, and that was for a lot of us like, wow, this is great. Like I'm so glad I got to see that instead of what I was expecting, because I would never have expected that.
Well, see, to me, that makes the band a failure if people enjoyed it. And I'm like, we didn't do it right. That was the thing that I enjoyed, was having people not like bands. I really, really like that. And Born Against playing to hostile audiences.
Of course.
And losing that was a bummer. And I think I tried to arrange a continuation of that for a while, and then it turned into something else.
But it's not that, like, I mean, I get it. Okay, so maybe a lot of people were upset, and they're just like, we wanted to see a real set. But for me personally, or maybe everyone in the Locust were like, that was fucking great, you know?
Yeah, at the time, we would have looked at it like, God damn, those Locust guys liked us. Shit, we messed up.
Huh. God,
I'm talking about a different incarnation of me. So.
Yeah. I am capable of seing the audience be upset and appreciating that for you, but and that might have been like, so it would have been a lost cause. Well, I would have been a lost cause for you.
Yeah, all the shows in California were really good audiences, and we were probably on our best behavior, because we always, like, any band coming from the East Coast, you come here and the shows are bigger, they're better, and you know a lot of people that you're impressed by, and you just make sure you do a good performance. Whereas if we played in the Midwest,
you don't give a fuck.
4 people, it's just kind of whatever. A big thing that happened that influenced all that was in Born Against. I started a little bit before that. I started writing for MRR, and so whenever we would come out to San Francisco, I would stay at the Maximum Rock and Roll House, and I would have access to the record library, which now I realize is like how I go through YouTube. Like, it's a library of everything, and I was all like, I never knew that Devo had all these weird, crazy records in their history. I learned about all this stuff, and so as that band progressed and the boundaries of whatever that subgenre kind of narrowed, I was going in the opposite direction, because I was discovering all this stuff that I didn't learn about in high school or the first time around in college or even in Born Against, and until the end of Born Against. And so I think that was a big part of MRP, is I had in my mind all these other things that were really far afield. The Art 7-inch, Michael Board's old band.
Oh yeah. I think, didn't MR put that out? Or
did they? I don't think they might have put out an art list thing. But no, the first Art 7-inch was a 3-sided 7-inch. The side 2 has an A channel and B channel.
Whoa.
And B channel is them getting yelled at a show they played for the Yippies, whatever the Yippies were in 1980. And like Yippies trying to throw them off stage. And it's just wonderful to listen to. Like, the crowd just hates them. And I remember I would listen to it and just turn the stereo to the B channel and listen to it like, I want that. I want people just yelling at me.
It is a huge accomplishment to get to that point, I think.
Where you piss people off?
If you can, like, I mean, to me, it's hard. Like, the Locust had a lot of it, Like, we did get beat up and maced and, Yeah,
you're I've talked to you about this before. Your experience is very different from mine. But also, in terms of San Diego was always a place I heard of, like Florida, like rural Pennsylvania or small town Pennsylvania. Like, don't go there, like, unarmed, like, it's going to be really bad. And then I talked to you and Sam Ott about this. You remember this years ago? I was like, and then I see you guys, and you're like, we had a great time. We go see Rice. And I'm like, well, what is this? But I got the impression that you and Locust, like, you did get the brunt of some bad shit.
Not
from
in
that
San
world.
Diego.
Really?
I mean,
so San Diego's safer at that point, or what?
No,
what happened?
I mean, for me, my gripe with San Diego would be like early '90s, like Nazi skinhead stuff. We had the proximity to what's his name, the White Aryan Resistance.
Oh, Metzger.
Tom Metzger.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of that. Like the Che Cafe shows, always like all the Born Against shows. There were neo Nazis there. It was just like, man, this is a fucking drag. Or it's crazy to go like, hey, it's Born Against, Rorschach, Downcast, Infest, heroin, whatever, and like you're a neo-Nazi here. Like, this is fucking crazy to me. But that happened. But for me in the Locust, it was always like Florida or fucking where, like Atlanta or what, something. It's just like, oh really? You're gonna just, and it wasn't like a neo-Nazi. It was just like shitheads. I mean, there was a stint where there was like a straight edge gang. We've had problems with straight edge gangs, and that was pretty bad at times. But also, we kind of like were provocative in the sense that we're like, oh, this is dangerous.
You were courting some of it.
sure, I'll show up with like a half stick of dynamite and be like, you want to fucking fight me? I'm going to blow us all up.
That's the kind of thing I'm talking about. See, I've never held a half stick of dynamite in
Yeah.
my hand and threatened anyone.
I mean, I wouldn't have lit it, but the fact that you have it is like, the perception is like, that's the craziest shit. Like,
Yeah.
you could wield a knife, whatever, but like
Yeah.
you have a fucking half stick of dynamite, you're
Yeah.
like, that's next level, you're out there.
I would on tour. I would always, at the start of a tour, I would get a rock and I'd put it in a gym sock, and that would be in my pocket, and that would be my weapon. And I got mocked so mercilessly by all my bandmates and multiple bands for doing that. And my thing is like, well, there's no other. I'm not going to carry a knife because I'm not dumb. Mace is not legal in half the country. I'm not going to carry a gun with me. Like, this is a nice, completely legal, affordable weapon.
Yeah.
And if something happens, all I have to do is take the rock out of the sock, and then I don't know what you mean, officer. This is a gym sock. How could I beat a man with a gym sock?
Yeah.
I'm still a little resentful of the abuse I took for that. I felt like I was on the right side of history with that one.
Is this folklore? Did you go on tour with Screeching Weasel and they left you at a gas station?
No. We played a few shows with them.
That never happened?
No.
That was a thing that people were like, I don't know why. Yeah, you were not on tour with them. You were just their roadie, and they got sick of you and they left you.
Oh, I was the roadie for a couple days, yeah. But
well-
no, that was a great trip. That was, they showed up and they're like, well, why don't you just come on the road with us for a
Yeah.
while? And I'm like, what are you talking about,
Yeah.
guys? And they're like, take a look around you. Take a look at your life. You don't have a job or a girlfriend. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Why? Like, they put me on the spot. Like,
Yeah.
why? Give us one reason why. I was like, okay.
And then you did it.
And then at the first show, we met Hamper. Gee, I'm blanking on his name. Jim Hamper. Harper? Oh my God, this is so sad. They did a book called Rivethead. He was in Michael Moore's Roger and Me. He was
Whoa.
the guy with the mustache who had the breakdown. He wrote a whole book about his time as a working class lefty guy, and it was a bestseller for a while. And so I had read the book like a week earlier, and I got really sad. Like, I'm never going to meet this guy as a stand-in for like all the great people I'm never going to meet. And then the first show was Screeching Weasel. He walks in and Ben's like, Ben Hamper. I was like, here's Ben Hamper. And I was like, what happened to reality? What is this?
Wow.
And he came along in the van with us. It was just all of us hanging out with this middle-aged man who was writing an article on Screeching Weasel. And it was just a thing that I happened to go with him. But you heard that they left me at a gas station.
Yeah, that was like the thing. Like,
I wouldn't put it past me to have been obnoxious enough that would be discussed.
Yeah.
However, I probably was on my best behavior when I was with them because they had some status with me and were my ride.
yeah.
That band, Born Against, was really good at generating rumors. Is what I found. There were a lot of weird stories that still have floated back to me, and then variations on stories. And I never really, at a certain point, it just sort of like there was this other version of the band that was out there or another version of me that was out there in the world, just.
But
having
also
weird little
pre-internet too,
adventures.
so there was always like
pre-internet,
the ability to kind of, because there would be like certain things where Born Against would navigate around. Also, like we knew Brett Blue from San Diego, and so
Right.
there was kind of like what the folklore of this thing, because again, like you guys were a little bit older than us, and we kind of looked at you all as like as our peers.
You
or
can
something.
say it. We were father figures. Yeah, we can just be honest about it.
Yeah. Okay, so also I wanted to ask who is Joe on the Sam and Joe track?
That's Joe Martin from Citizen's Arrest.
Ah. That's
There's
crazy.
who did you think it was?
I don't know. I don't know. There's a few Joes. I was like, who could
Yeah.
this be?
Yeah, there's been
It
some
wasn't Joe
confusion over that
Preston.
one.
I knew that, but I was like, who the fuck is this?
That was me and him.
Yeah.
Just like we both really wanted to do something for this comp I was putting out, and I was like, well, we were roommates, and neither of us did anything, and the routine was get up at 1 p.m., go to the supermarket, buy a 2-liter of Pepsi, come back to the place, do some mail order, and then it's dinner time, whatever. And so we stayed up all night and just had a bunch of fanzines and very like abolition-y type stuff, which at the time was very heartfelt, not a lot of humor in it, very like it was
Well, Joe's side of the two of your banter was very like focused politically. Yours
Was it?
veered off a little bit into the.
Yeah, we had a problem recording it because we kept laughing. And Wharton Tears, he's a respected producer, I don't think he was nuts about doing any of that recording because it was just two guys
Yelling.
screwing around in a
Yeah.
studio and
Yeah.
yelling. But yeah, when that happened, after it happened, we were both like, "This is probably the best thing either of us are ever going to do in our recording
It
careers."
is my favorite thing you've ever done.
Yeah,
I hope that's
I
okay.
agree with that.
Okay.
5 stars on that one.
Yeah. I just did a podcast where it was totally shitty of them to ask me pick 10 songs that like are your your favorite or whatever, and I was like, this
On
is...
the spot?
No, they asked me to pick them,
okay.
and then I was like, this is fucking bullshit, man. Like I could pick 10 from any artist, and I was like,
Yeah.
this is crazy. Like,
Yeah.
and so I just randomly was like blah 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 blah, and I picked the Sam and Joe track, and most of it, for one, the guy was great. He was very. He was very articulate, and like I picked like a Yes song, and then I picked Warsaw Was Raw. It was just like all over the place. Baraka Son
You
Sistema.
tried to do your job.
He was like, holy shit, this is wild. Anthony and the Johnsons, and then like would talk about how Anthony is now Anoni, and I was like, oh, all of the stuff. But when I got to the Sam and Joe track, he's like, what the fuck is this? And I was like, dude, this is the shit right here, man. And so
mission accomplished.
Yeah, we dove into that, and he was like, this is brilliant. And I was like, it is. It really, really is. But again, like a little bit ahead of that time, because that Fear of Smell comp was crazy. It had the mix of everything, because it did have like these like sort of skits in it, which I attributed to like hip hop stuff, where like
Yes.
a lot of hip hop albums would have like a skit.
Yeah.
And there'll be like, there's like the one about Kiss, which I think is Adam maybe.
Oh, yeah.
There's just all these like...
It's really all over the place, yeah.
But it was great. It kept my attention.
Yeah, that record turned out great through it was just luck. Again, it was just right time, right place. And when I look back on Vermiform, like, there's a bit of regret there, because I was really handed something rather special, which was 2 things. Access to the ABC No Rio scene, which was kind of new and exciting, even though it was a retro scene. And then also all these worlds that I got to intersect through touring. And if that label had been more focused, it could have really been like a commercially viable label. I mean that in the way of like, I could have set my own terms and I could have done whatever I want. And
Maybe, can I say commercially viable, like maybe like Discord?
yeah, like Discord.
Not
yeah.
like...
Commercially viable in that it could have been a business that paid for itself and had employees, and I could have done everything correctly.
Because back then it was like very righteous. You had to have these like sort of morals.
Yeah,
and
and it was hamstrung by that somewhat, but really it was hamstrung by me as the sole A&R person, which was, there was a very specific time in like 94 where I was offered one specific record that doesn't need to be named, and I turned it down, and that would have been a really big hardcore record.
Can off...
Sure, off the record. Wink. This isn't gonna be like exciting answer. Like no effects. Like no, not that. And I became clear. Like I don't know what it is I want out of this label. All I really know is what I don't want, and what I don't want really is to be successful as a label, because there's too much stuff that grosses me out. I'm not maybe stable enough as a person to do it, and I just have too many points of beef, like the thing I was talking about where I gave your album a bad review as I'm trying to sell it, there's too much like, I gotta speak my truth.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, come on.
Well, I think what you said, I don't know if I've ever like even seen that review, but it's great, and it makes
again not a review, a description of a fucking
To sell
record
it.
that I'm selling.
Yeah.
Yeah, someday I'll find it and I'll send it to you, and it's
so good.
well.
But also, I'm the kind of person that's like, I loved the banter.
Okay,
of the
yeah,
thing,
I guess
and,
I counted on that you'd be like, ha, but
Yeah.
like, you weren't the only person working at that label. And who was your partner?
Alicia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, she would have been fine with it too.
okay, all
Yeah,
right, but either
yeah,
way, like that's
yeah.
a big assumption on my part.
Well, I think like I don't know. I get it. Not everyone's cut from the same cloth that you are, but for me, seeing like the transition from Born Against to the very end of your musical stint or whatever you want to call it, like when you stopped, like it gradually got like, to me, I see it like this, not because it got like more creative. And
if you're listening to this, he's making a hand gesture that
from
implies a
bottom.
graph, but I can't tell if the line is going up or down.
it's going up.
Okay.
So like,
So from his perspective, it's going up.
but but that's fucked up too, because I think everything. Maybe that's not a good graph. My graph sucks. So let's just fuck it. But a lot of things that I think you adapted to the changing of everything, and that was interesting to me to see.
There was a really big thing too in the 80s where if you were in a hardcore band that was successful, your next band was going to be a little more serious, a little more introspective, if not like a metal band. Like it was going to be
like SSD.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm thinking of like Jones Very. Remember Vic Bondi's band after Articles of Faith? Like a little bit more serious. Or all those DC guys, like their next band was a little like, we're getting more serious here, guys. Or from Minor Threat to Embrace. And me and Neil were like, no, that's not happening here. We are going to be dropping IQ points dramatically for this next project. And if you're not on board, then, you know, up front, fuck you. Like we're not doing this to be nice, pleasant people.
But how fucked up is it that like your ability to, I guess, derail yourself over time has become this thing that's sought after now? I mean, you probably are pissed that happened, but it did, and you can't deny it.
I'm sorry, you're talking about me in specific, or
you and Vermiform and Born Against and Men's Recovery Project, all of it, all the shit, you know,
all the explodey style stuff. Yeah,
because there's beauty in that. Like the
sure.
fact that you know, yes, I want there to be a Born Against show again, but I guarantee you it'll be like when I went and saw the Sex Pistols. I was like, man, fuck this shit.
Man,
you know?
I loved seeing the Sex Pistols in 1997. When did you see them on that tour or the 2011?
It was the 97 one.
And you didn't enjoy it? He
It was
came
at
out. Where'd you see it?
It was at this festival with every shithead band.
Well, what
played
city?
In it's probably like Diamond Bar or something out there. Like it was out there. It was like one of those.
Wow.
It was like San Bernardino, like out there. It was like.
Okay. I saw them in San Francisco, so probably I can't say a larger venue though, because I'm sure they played.
It
like
was
an
a big
arena, right?
festival outdoor.
He between every song he'd go, "It's your funeral,"
Yeah.
and you're like, "Yeah, you're so stupid. This is wonderful."
Yeah.
What was the crowd like there? Because when I saw them, the crowd was a lot like the crowd that I had seen.
I love how you just avoided my statement about you and.
Oh yeah. You like that? Brother, I'm the master of that. It was like the crowd at the Weird Al Yankovic show, but like older and creepier.
Oh,
like there was a guy there with an anti-tax sign.
Oh.
He'd made a sign against the concept of taxation.
That's crazy.
That he was then holding as a protest for other people in the audience to see.
Whoa.
And at one point he was yelling. There was this hippie couple in front of us, and he goes, "Who brought you here? Your mommy and daddy?" And we're like, "What is this incredible act you're doing, young man?" Because it's baffling. It makes no sense. Like the whole audience was like that.
The thing I took away from it, well, it was very jarring because it was like Vandals, Offspring, Bad Religion, The Damned,
no.
like it was everything. And
That's way more masochistic than
it was
the lineup I saw.
fucking rough. The thing that I took away from it was there was actually a few things. One was I was out in the crowd and there was a person with a full back piece tattoo of Hitler's face, and I was like, oh, this is fucking crazy.
Oh.
But then like backstage was interesting because, you know, I mean, maybe I'm not always tactful, and I regret certain things that I've done. But anyhow, the Sex Pistols were like the thing for me when I was 10, and I was like, oh my god,
Of course.
So
As they should have been.
It was like 24 or something, and I was like, there's Paul Cook, and I was like, hey Paul, like your band did something for me, like this is crazy, and I would love to give you this Locust CD, you know. And it was like right when the first Locust record came out or whatever. So, and he was like, you know, I can't do a British accent, but he's like, thanks mate. And he's like, I don't think I would like this, but my daughter would, which is Holly, who ended up becoming in the later incarnation of the Slits, and then ended up was like either married or dated someone that was in the band Some Girls with me, and like, so it was like really interesting to like see all these things happen. My connection to Paul Cook, who I think is fucking cool. Same with Steve Jones. I think he's
And he was
awesome.
nice to you.
Steve Jones was awesome. He was sitting over there, and I was like, fuck, it's Steve Jones, and he's like, come on, I'll sign it. And I couldn't even ask him, you know, and he just signs the thing, and he's like, all right, later, you know. And I was like, fuck, that guy's so cool. And I later run into Steve Jones at a grocery store, and he was so cool to me, but I know not to be like,
Of
you
course.
know. I was
Yeah.
like, Jonesy, what's up? And he's like, what's up? And like, it was just really cool, you know.
Yeah.
I was like, this is fucking rad. But I'm sure
I would melt if I met any of them. I'm terrible with famous people. I get really, it's not just tongue-tied. I feel like I just feel worthless, and my entire instinct is to just get out of their line of sight. Like David Lynch, we saw at a screening for the Harry Dean Stanton biography movie, I don't know, 10 years ago, and as soon as I saw him on the sidewalk, I was just like, get out of his line of sight. You're not worthy to be seen by this person. Make yourself as small as possible. Hide behind a fire hydrant, whatever you have to do. And if any of those Sex Pistols guy. There's a puke, there wouldn't be any conversation.
But do you hold them at this, like, not that I hold them on a pedestal, but like I looked up to them as a child.
It's weird. I don't. My whole thing is my self-worth goes down. It's not that theirs is super high. Just it's not healthy.
Well, okay, so I was fortunate to fucking finagle this to play a show with PIL, my band Retox, and there was like this meet and greet thing later. It was PIL like when he had like the bass player for this
so many
Spice
incarnations.
Girls, the Spice
okay.
Girls. Yeah, it was
Wait,
like
I'm sorry, for real?
yeah. It was the drummer for Pop Group, guitar player for Damned, bass player for Spice Girls.
Yeah.
Okay, musically it was great. Their set was great. I was very impressed. I went into it thinking it's gonna be garbage, but there was like a meet and greet, and they're like, "You're gonna meet him," and I was like, "Fuck that! It's gonna ruin my like entire perception of the band."
Of course.
And then I kind of got dragged in by this person, and it was fine, and I met him, but I knew not to be like, the first time I heard Anarchy in the UK, I was like, I just was gonna fuck with him and be like, "Yo, where's Martin Atkins?" Like he, the drummer for that was like on all the good PIL shit, and I was like. And he's like, Martin, and like, we've worked with Martin and stuff, so it was kind of funny to have a way to get in there, a jab, and it wasn't like, I didn't have to be like, when I first heard,
like the Chris Farley sketch,
it
was great when you were in the Beatles.
Yeah. I just was like, because everyone else was like every single person was like just sucking his dick in some random way, and I was like, this is fucked.
It's got to be an excruciating life to be.
Yeah, and I think also I realized like. John Lydon was probably like, oh shit, breath of fresh air. This guy's just like taking a piss out of me and like talking about Martin Atkins, not talking about a thing that he doesn't want to talk about. So
that worked.
It did, yeah. So I feel like if you were to meet, I don't know, whoever, like, what would be like?
I would say David Lynch, but not anymore.
Well, okay. But even like David Lynch, like I've never met him, and I would have loved to. But like I feel like he's the kind of person to where he's himself, and a very unique person. But like you would have to figure out a way to conduct yourself oddly to sort of work with him.
Yeah, there's some room to maneuver, I think, with celebrities in that they get so much of. I've noticed this. I've heard these stories from people who've worked on film sets about how people, Andy from Wrangler Brutes worked on the film set for one of the Austin Powers movies. And everyone on the set, as soon as Mike Myers would walk on, is just so sickeningly ingratiating and desperate to laugh at anything he says, joke or not.
Wow.
And so there's probably room in there to just not do that.
Yeah.
And figure out a way to engage that person. But for me, my brain shuts down.
But like respect, like you're just a regular person. Like,
Yeah,
what's
yeah.
up? Like I think when I met Steve at the grocery store, it was Steve Jones. It was like I was just like, what's up?
Yeah,
like,
and probably like 4 other people at that grocery store were like, hey, good work.
Yeah, and I think the fact that you can just be like, it's cool, whatever, in my mind, I was like, fuck, it's
That'd
Steve.
be great if you did that.
I wonder-
It's cool. Great to meet you.
Really, what I want to be is like, what are you buying, dude? Like, what is that's the kombucha you picked? I don't know, whatever.
God, yeah.
You eat Miracle Whip.
Yeah. I think in retrospect, not to keep talking about the Sex Pistols, but when I was growing up, I always thought, Johnny and Sid were the coolest. But now but now Steve is like by far like so fucking funny.
Isn't his radio show, or it was really good, right?
It was. And then he had an Instagram thing that was just like mind blowing. And he did all these skits. And I was like, damn, it kind of actually, seemed like a little men's recovery project-y where you're just like, what the fuck is he doing?
Guarantee he ripped off MRP somewhere along the line.
It could have happened, but it was in that realm.
You say in the past tense, is it not on Instagram now?
I don't know if he still has it, but
I delete Instagram every day from my phone.
Yeah.
And then I reinstall it, and I can't have it on there anymore. It's just too distracting. I built up a feed on there that is anyone that I know, I instantly mute. I don't care.
Yeah.
And so all my stuff is like construction companies in Saudi Arabia, and like, hey, this is what it's like fishing in North Alaska, or for a while it was severely people with really bad burns that got a little grim, like just stuff that's interesting to me.
Yeah.
And
there are a lot of people I follow I have to mute as well.
Yeah, so I just don't have it on my phone.
Yeah.
During the day, and so that's always when I hear. We heard about something at lunch. Bob was telling us about something I need to follow on Instagram, and I'm reaching like,
he's on Instagram? Right. I didn't even know.
No.
Yeah.
Someone that no. God, no.
But I mean, how does he access it if he's not on it?
That's a good question.
Anyhow, if Steve Jones is on there, I'm sure it's good. He's just he seems like a funny motherfucker. Like I
He's
can't
been
get over
part of it. He plays on that the Repo Man theme song with Iggy Pop.
Yeah.
Him and like Clem Burke.
And
It's
that was
really
a pretty
weird
good
lineup.
record too.
That's a great.
Yeah.
All the way through.
Yep. Okay, so we need to wrap it up because people don't listen past an hour. But I
No,
do want to
because
say
people are because lazy. That's the word for it.
they-
They're lazy listeners.
I wanted to bring up this time where you all were in California playing. It must have been like the last tour that Born Against did, because I think Tony was in that
Right.
incarnation, and you had stayed. I lived in this. We lived in this co-op, the Che Cafe. People had a co-op. It was this mansion, and you guys stayed there. And I remember
Really?
and it was and there was also this guy from that band Gehenna that was there.
Okay.
And so it was before Gehenna was Gehenna, though. Do you know that band?
I know of them.
Okay,
I know they have a reputation, but I'm not
They
quite
definitely
sure
have a
for
reputation.
what.
So this guy was from Arizona, the Gehenna guy, and he left. And this is before cell phones, so we didn't know where anybody went. He just left, and so he calls our house and he's like, "Hey, I left with Born Against," and we were all just like, "Oh fuck, that guy's such a." I gotta watch what I'm saying because it probably that guy's so sketchy. I felt really bad for you guys. I was like, "Oh my god, they fucking took that guy," and it wasn't like our friend. He was out there to see you guys see the show, and he went with you in the van for at least one show. He left with you, left San Diego, and he's like, "Hey, I left my Uzi in your sock drawer.
Yes.
Can you handle it?" And I'm
Well,
like,
I thought he had
"What?"
the Uzi in the car. I thought I wasn't on that ride.
Okay.
I would often separate from them as soon as we got to California. If I
Yeah.
knew anyone else,
Yeah, smart move.
because people were sick of me, I was sick of them. If it was Bay Area, it was always the MRR house. But
Yeah.
I would always just find other people.
Okay.
I missed 2 shows in Southern California using that technique, which was not smart.
Wow. How'd the shows happen?
There was instrumental shows.
Holy shit.
Yeah, oops. Actually, no. Only one in California, and I think the other one was in New Orleans because I was sick. Maybe, I don't remember, something like that. I do remember that. Yeah, he had tattoos of serial killers.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I didn't meet him. I wasn't part of that. It was just later. It was them. And at that point, the band was like, "Well, it was a Tuesday,
Yeah.
the scary drifter kid when Uzi was in the band. What
Well, he didn't bring his Uzi. He left it at my house. But
Oh, okay.
there was the night before so I guess the night before the show, he came out, and we were like, I was going to community college, and I remember driving through the campus, and he got pissed at the guy that was driving, and like gets out with his Uzi and just like cruising around. I'm like, dude, this is like not acceptable.
Yeah.
So then I knew he had the Uzi, and then the show happened the next morning. He left with you, and I was like, holy fuck. But I was so grateful that he left it in our house in my underwear drawer, and I had to get my roommate. I was like, dude, I don't want to touch it. Like, can you just take it and disarm it and get it away and whatever. But so
At the end, when you're standing at the pearly gates, there's a massive checklist, and one of the questions could be, "Have you ever touched an Uzi?" And you'd be like, "Nope."
Nope.
You'd be like, "All right, that's in the
Yeah,
plus
yeah.
column."
I just wanted to say sorry in case that did become a thing, because
No.
he ended up shooting his girlfriend in the face or something,
Oh,
like
all right.
or something, some on accident. I don't know, like
Okay,
something.
that's a horrible ending.
She's fine.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, weird stuff. So anyhow, I'm glad you exist in this world, and
Likewise.
all of your accomplishments, as much as you want to shit all over them.
I don't. Why do I have this reputation? I don't. Do I? I really do
You
have that
You've been
reputation.
shitting on your own shit for like.
But I don't.
yeah,
Do
you
I?
did. Yeah,
See,
you did.
the whole thing I say about Born Against is like, I'm fine with Born Against. It's just, it's not a great calling card. Like, it's a little weird. And
It's different when you're in it, because I feel like to the rest of the world that appreciates it, they're like, I would love to have been in that band. Instead, I'm in blah, blah, blah,
yeah, there was a thing. I remember a band from New York, who I won't name, who halfway through Born Against, or maybe towards the end, they were like, people weren't coming to their shows, and like, well, maybe if we did Antics, like it was a dig at Born Against, like maybe if we slagged off a bunch of people and did Antics, more people would see us. I was like, yeah, yes, that you've hit upon it, young fella. That's the clue. Be loud and noisy and make people uncomfortable, and make a lot of enemies, and you will have well-attended shows, and people will buy your records. Like, it's not that hard a concept, which really translates to don't be boring.
Completely. And also, I feel like maybe you guys, and I hate using these words, but like it really was like the true like aesthetic of punk. You're like, oh, this is like antagonistic, and like these guys are fucking rude and weird, and like that was kind of cool.
I mean, it was one.
I don't
feel
want
like there's so many definitions.
Of
that,
course,
but
there
it was one that was undervalued at that time.
Okay, because everyone else was getting like comfortable, and you're just like,
Yeah.
we're in the band, and
Sure.
it sounds like this.
I mean, nothing that we were doing was new. Like for us, it was all, we were just reaching back to an era that was a little bit past everyone's memory, since turnover is so high that we were into things from the early 80s or later in the late 70s, like that thing where there was way more antagonism and way more experimentation. And Born Against did a lot of experimentation. I feel like, especially on that last tour in 93, you can see all the seeds of MRP in there. Like, I got that disgusting rabbit mask. I just wore this filthy mask on. It wasn't like a good move. I'm sure those shows were boring. But we would just try weird shit. The thing I was talking about the other day, we did a tour through the South, and the audience would get really crazy at that point in our tours. And I had a copy of Wizard of Oz, and I'm like, if you people get out of control, the show's over, and I'm going to read Wizard of Oz to you because it's a good book, and we're not going to be the soundtrack to your beating each other up. And I had to do it in New Orleans, and people were really not happy with it.
Because they wanted, like,
they didn't want to hear they didn't want to hear a great children's fantasy. They wanted to hear some chugga mosh.
Fuck, that's crazy.
Stuff.
Yeah. But I think, okay, so maybe I'm a rarity, but I would have been like, that's so fucking rad that happened. I mean, it was like...
See, a lot of these stories have value later as something that happened. They didn't have value at the time, but now, like, oh, that's a funny story I can tell, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I was always like when the Downcast world was like, sit down and don't let everyone mosh. I was like, oh, not that I wanted to mosh. I was like, that's kind of a weird move, but like, I don't know. I guess they were instructing the crowd to do something.
I understand where they were coming from, because people were getting seriously hurt at shows. And we tried to, in an era where that was the issue or an issue, we tried really hard to sort of skirt this weird middle line, which was don't sit down. You can have a pit, but also if the pit's too crazy,
just
you're
be
going to
cool.
get lectured to. Yeah.
You lectured. I remember this one where you stood on a chair and the band played, and you were like at the chair, you were just like looking over and just like monitoring people or something. And I was like, damn, man. Yeah. It was a cool vibe.
One of those chair sets, I had the rabbit mask on. I was on a stool, and there's zero visibility, and then suddenly the stool was gone.
Yeah.
And you can't. So I was like, I know I'm going to survive this fall, but it was just like free fall in space. And Tony was so angry, and Tony's not a particularly aggressive person. He, still playing bass, leapt onto the guy and rode him like a horse. He knocked the guy onto all fours and continued playing the song angrily. Like, I had gotten my mask on, and what I saw after I picked myself up and realized I hadn't broken anything was Tony very angrily riding this man around like a animal while still continuing the song.
That's great.
So the lesson I took away from that was, okay, masks and stools don't mix.
Yeah.
Don't mix.
Yeah.
Don't do that again.
Yeah. I saw you guys play at Santa Barbara in Goleta at one point, and you had like just not purposely, but you spit, and it was gross, and it was this loogie that went on this guy's shoe.
I would never do that.
Not on purpose. But it was. I remember this. It was so crazy. It was like he was probably in Strife, or like he was in a straight edge band. He was like very well dressed.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
You had spit on his shoe, and he was so psyched. He was like, ha, and all his friends were like, oh, and I was like.
No,
like for the entire song, I was like, they're fucking playing. Who cares, man?
No.
But they thought it was like, when you, I don't know. I don't want to equate something that's gonna get me canceled.
There was a lot of stuff with that band. Yeah, please don't do that. There was a lot of stuff with that band where like these guys are the punkest. And like, what does that even mean?
It was
and
like
why
that.
Is that us?
It was like that. It was such a disappointment. Yeah. I was like, fuck these people. Not you, the crowd. I
shouldn't have been spitting on anyone though. That's.
But it wasn't
I know I wasn't spitting on someone, but in any direction where a human is, I shouldn't have done that. So that one's on me.
There you have it. That was episode 50 of the Cult and Culture podcast. I can't believe we made it this far. We want to thank you, the viewer or listener. We'd like to thank Ruinous Media, all of our sponsors for being awesome. I'd like to thank Becky and Andy, as always. We'd like to thank Captain and Earthquaker Devices for always taking care of us. We love you guys. If you get a chance, check out everything by Sam McPheeters. The guy's a fucking genius, as you just saw. And I don't know. We hope to see you on episode 51. It's going to be crazy.
Cult and Culture is a Ruinous Media podcast proudly sponsored by Earthquaker Devices, Heartwork Coffee, Diodario, Kindred, Smashed Plastic Record Pressing, and San Diego Food Shed.
Planet B.